Yes, yeah. Okay, guys, we are live on YouTube. I'm going to call this meeting to order, please. If you are going to chat, go out into the hall, please.
Are you scolding?
I am scolding. No, I'm not. I'm just asking politely if people could keep their voices to a minimum and, or go out in the hall. All right, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Remember, this is from our special meeting that was prior to the last full board meeting. Could I have that motion by Supervisor Driscoll? Second to approve the minutes? Supervisor McGowan, thank you. Any discussion? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, that carries. Thank you. Okay, we do not, I believe, have a representative today from SUNY Adirondack, but I would like to remind everyone to please put on your calendar. We have a joint meeting tomorrow, Personnel and Finance, for our SUNY update. It's at 10 a.m. And Amanda will be sending out a reminder with the Zoom information for that meeting. But I believe, are we meeting in person anywhere? It's all by Zoom.
Anybody who wants to attend in person.
So if you want to attend in person, you can come here to the boardroom and we'll meet together virtually. Is this with Washington County as well?
It is.
Yep. So we'll be with our colleagues virtually tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay, Ms. Allen, it's up to you.
So the first thing I had on here is the resolution tracking report, and that's in the agenda, I believe. Yep, as usual. If anyone has any questions on that, just give me a call. And then item 2B, this is a request for funding. We have, there's a Nato conference in Maryland coming up in July. They are meeting in person. And that's something we have been attending in the past, but we don't have money in our budget for that this year. So I was requesting a transfer from contingent, I would believe, but that would be up to finance to determine finally, for $10,000. We're thinking it's generally about $2,500 per person when all is said and done, between the conference fee, the travel, the hotel, meal reimbursement, all of that. We have planned for the 3 people on the NACO conference. I did send out an email asking if anyone else wanted to go, and I didn't get any other takers. But this is the amount I was asking for, and anything we don't expend would either be left in our budget or we can use it for an ISAC training in the fall.
Okay, can you remind us who's on our NACO committee?
Yes, it is Chairwoman Sieber, Supervisor Leggett, and myself.
Okay, and the 3 of you are planning to go?
Yes.
Okay, and no one else is interested. Does anyone want to jump in now or forever hold your peace? Chairwoman Sieber, Supervisor Leggett, and Ms. Allen. Would you like to go, Supervisor Garrity? Okay, could I have a motion, please, for this request?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor Driscoll on the second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Okay, anything else?
That's it for me.
That's it for you. All right. Number 3, this is a carryover, I will say. It was not officially tabled or referred back to committee, but it was something that was discussed at the full board meeting when we were making changes to the ethics law. And if you'll recall, there is a financial disclosure form in the county's local law, and there were changes that were proposed in Appendix B. At that time, there were some supervisors who were uncomfortable, I'll say, with the revisions to that form, and there was a request to remove it. That did carry through, and we have a public hearing set for the current proposal, which includes what I'm going to call the old form or the long form. And at that last board meeting, if everyone will recall, there was a lot of discussion about moving forward with changes, continuing to make changes and look at the form. I can specifically recall just, some dialogue that we had between myself and Supervisor Conover at the meeting. And right after that, where we both agreed that we would try to work on this form going forward. So immediately after that meeting, I asked our county attorney to start working on the revisions and try to come up with a new form that we could bring back to committee. So he actually did that the very day of the meeting. I sent that over to Supervisor Conover the next morning, and we did have a discussion the very next day. Since that time, there's been a few other changes. I will point out the one because it's not in the form. If you look at page 1, the county attorney would like to add a definition for the word dependent. And so that would be in there. It's highlighted in red. But the primary change that we're looking at making going forward is under Appendix B in the financial disclosure form. And I know I have not received any substantive comments or feedback on the proposal that was given out right after the last board meeting. But certainly there are some concerns, and I will happily open the floor to discussion. Supervisor Conover.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, since the meeting, I mean, I've been collecting a voluminous amount of information regarding this, and up until and including all of the agendas and minutes from the last change that took place in 2014, which was a change that took from February to November. Went back to committee, I don't know, 4 or 5 times to see what their thinking was back then. I had a number of questions regarding some of the information. I did meet with the county administrator and the county attorney to go over all of this so that I could ask my questions, one of which included the whole grandfathering provision, which seems to play prominent in this. As some of you know, that the way the law was introduced was that if those municipalities, counties that had pre-existing laws prior to January 1 of 91 were exempt from, or did not have to be did not have to require the provisions of 812.5. And so, for example, one of my questions was, well, once they adopted that in 2014, what did they do in 2014? The minutes seem to indicate that they did a lot with the ethics provisions, but they didn't do anything with the disclosure form in 2014. There may have been some modifications, I'll call them minor, but it was substantially the same document. And so that made me feel a little better in terms of this, but the state law is silent on what we can and can't do with the document going forward that we had in 1990. It just says that if you've adopted it, that it's somehow grandfathered. And then the question was, is it the document that's grandfathered, or are we grandfathered, and what does all of this mean? I know the staff is still working on that question. I know phone calls were going to be made because I think we really need to nail that down so that we have an idea of how we're allowed to proceed. In other words, that I don't think we should assume anything relative to that. One of my questions, I had a number of questions, but for example, one of the questions that I had was, for example, and from the county attorney, was the question form that he provided in his correspondence of May 21. Did this come out of the Fordham Urban Law Journal? And he indicated that it did. And that was the source of this particular document. I've yet to read that report, but I'll take it for what it is. So I think at the moment, what my thinking is going forward is that, we need to get some answers to some of these questions. I think that our staff, particularly county administrator and county attorney, need to get to a good place technically relative to what we can and can't do and what an amendment would look like. And then they can step forward with some confidence in recommending to us, how they think we might want to proceed. The county administrator, I thought, discussed in great detail the front end, which is not as actively discussed, which is the Ethics Commission and what it does, what its role is, and how to make this reporting meaningful in terms of, or more meaningful in terms of it being done. And so, but that's going to take some time for those thoughts to be put together. And so I would think that what I would recommend to the committee would be that when they feel they're ready to discuss this in more detail, that we have a workshop devoted just to this. So we can go through this in the kind of detail that I think is going to be required. I mean, I mean, we're going to have to take the existing document. We're going to have to look at the new document. We're going to have to be able to ascertain what's being cut out, why it's being cut out. We're going to need to be able to speak to that in a public session, responsibly in a public session, as to why we don't feel the information is needed. If something new has been added, why the new information is needed. And I think we need to create a responsible record relative to this. I think it can be done in fairly short order, but that would be, where I'm at with this at this point in time. I think we're getting some answers to some very important questions that we didn't know heretofore, and I think that would be what I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Garrity.
Madam Chairwoman, can we have the blank old form emailed out to us, a blank of the current appendix B and C sent out to us, please?
You should have received that earlier in the year when you filled out your blank form, but yes.
I did.
I'm sure you can
I
have
did. I
another
filed it,
copy.
but I don't have a blank copy with
Of the
no
old-
writing on it.
Mhm.
And I'm not
Okay.
going to share my information unless you foil it.
Okay. Just a second, Mr. Moore. Are there any other comments at this time from supervisors? Okay. I do want to ask the county attorney some questions, and Supervisor Conover has asked about that, about the legality.
You didn't answer me. We
I
can't get the form.
Absolutely. Yes, I did say yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My hearing's going to.
I'll speak up. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. It is also available online if you need to, but we'll have it emailed out to the full board if anyone wants it, or just to the committee.
Yeah, and then we could do the side by side.
Mhm. Okay, I did want to ask the county attorney on, while we're here in the public session, because certainly he's done a lot of research, as Supervisor Conover has alluded to. Are you there? Yeah, Mr. Terwilliger, can you give us your legal opinion as to whether or not the county ever voluntarily opted into or was opted into by default the statutory long form that's in 812, Section 5, I think it is?
Okay, this is actually kind of an interesting area on it. There's a lot of commentary that's been done by people, legal scholars on it, and a lot of them are very critical of the way the state's drafted this part of the general municipal law. And what it is with us is, my legal opinion on it, yes, I believe that we are able to adopt and create our own form. We're not opted into the form listed in General Municipal Law 812, Section 5. The county would have opted into that form if it had not created its own form by January 1st, 1991. Then it would have opted into it. After that date, the county can change the form that it has, the form that it adopted in 1991. You can't just willy-nilly put in any little bit you want. There are some standards and guidance to it. First, we follow what has to be disclosed and required under our own ethics law. What are our own prohibitions and requirements in Warren County's ethics law and policy? Also, follow what guidance there is in the statute. General Municipal Law 806 provides some guidance of conflict of interest and what is and what isn't a conflict of interest. That's something that should be taken into account when we design our own form. And there is some very good commentary out there. There are model forms that have been created. The comptroller's office has a model form that counties can use, or any municipality. It's really kind of written as a one size fits all. So it's not specific for a county. It could be used for a town, a village, a city, or a county. That's something that we could use also for ideas. There are forms and ideas of creating a disclosure document that have been in the literature from people like Mark Davies and Stephen Leventhal have written extensively about this subject. Both of them were on the State Temporary Commission for Local Government Ethics in the late 80s and early 90s, and have written a lot about it and created not really a template, but a set of standards for municipalities to look at when they're drafting their own form. So we definitely, I am certain we can create our own form, but we definitely need to bear in mind that there are some standards to it. It's not something where we can just purely create what we want without any regard to the general municipal law, our own ethics code, and the legal commentary that's out there that supplements what's really lacking from the state law.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Terwilliger. I think that's very clear that we are not bound, we're not mandated to use the 812.5 statutory long form. I understand that there are people with concerns and would like to really do some more research and digging and maybe look at more template forms. However, there are also supervisors who are ready to move forward and create the new form and get the short form into the process of, yes, it's going to need, as far as I know, it's going to need another public hearing. So I'm trying to manage this process in a way that is fair and transparent. And I have supervisors on one side ready to go forward, and I have supervisors on the other side who are not quite ready. And so I'm going to turn to our county administrator to see if he has a recommended compromise for something that we can do as a way to make sure we're moving forward and not sitting and doing nothing or waiting until it's too late to do anything for even the next fiscal year.
Sure. We have, I believe the local law that we have scheduled for a public hearing at the June board meeting is that we'll have the public hearing and then we'll adopt the local law. That local law has the current ethics form in it, which is why I raised my hand earlier, just to clarify that. I'm about to hit send on that right now, so you'll all have that. This is what's on tap for the June meeting. Just go to Appendix B, that's the current ethics form. So my recommendation would be at the June meeting, have the public hearing, adopt the ethics law as it's been revised with the current form. Just put an additional resolve paragraph in the resolution adopting the local law and say, be it further resolved. And, I would suggest that you take at least a little bit more time to hash this out among supervisors who want more information, who want a better context as to what all of the rules and regulations are. I would create a temporary special committee. You can call it the, Ethics Disclosure Committee. Put 5 supervisors on it or however many you want to put on it. Have that committee sit down and look at this. The staff will give our input. I've done a lot of research on this. One of the benefits of having a newborn, when I'm up with her at night, I have a lot of time to read, and I've done a lot of reading. So we'll do a download, and my recommendation would be to do a download in that sort of a forum. And then that temporary committee makes a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, let's say at the July meeting. That'd be my recommendation.
Let me just think for a second. So if we are moving forward with the current proposal that went through at the public hearing, or will go through the public hearing at the June meeting, I believe there's a provision in there that says that law will take effect in 60 days. So if you're saying this special committee provides a recommendation by July, theoretically, we could still have something adopted, a new form adopted at the August meeting.
Yeah, the 60 days, I think I'd have to go back and reread it, but I think the 60 days is in reference to getting the ethics board appointed, because we changed a little bit in that in terms of who can get appointed to the ethics board. We also changed quite a bit in what the ethics board is going to be doing. We tasked them with being much more proactive, meeting twice a year, actually going through and opening financial disclosures and reviewing them for potential conflicts, which I think is a very good change. So I think what we're talking about really is when that new ethics board is appointed and active and charged with its duties, that's 60 days. So it'd be 60 days from the June meeting. That puts it into August. So I think that backtracking to I suggested that we have a recommendation on an ethics form for the July meeting. So that would fairly coincide with that. If we were to,
I think,
recommend something in July and introduce it, have a public hearing in August and adopt it in August, if the board's comfortable with that.
and that would be very close. And then the new ethics board composition would have available to it the new forms, for instance, if we have new hires or something like that. Because remember, this applies to not just the 20 supervisors, it applies to like 100 people in the county. I want to go to Supervisor Bruno. He had his hand up, and then I'll come back to you.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Might I suggest that an outline schedule, call it what you will, be issued to define milestones, dates, so that this thing isn't open-ended. It just goes on and on. So you need to give it some definition. Somebody needs to give it some definition and some dates, public hearing, issuing of the preliminary or proposed form, that sort of thing, and the review completed by whoever, by this date, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Supervisor Garrity?
Yeah, my question is, I get a little confused. All we're talking about is Appendix B and C, correct?
Wait, Supervisor Garrity, the Appendix C is for a different purpose, so it's only Appendix B.
That's all we're talking about?
That's all we're talking about.
Okay, because it seems we're clouding the issue of the ethics committee and the appointment. That's going to be dealt with at our public hearing.
Correct,
So that's taken care of. We're only talking about this B.
correct.
Shouldn't take us very long to come to conclusion on something on B in the future.
Would you be willing to make a motion to have a special committee provide the recommendation by July on Appendix B?
Absolutely. That was my whole intent before, and I was told not to pick a date, but yes, I'll make a motion that we move forward with a committee to address Appendix B,
Thank you.
financial disclosure.
I will second that. Discussion.
We're only a 5-person committee.
Mhm.
So we're going to pick a committee out of a 5-person committee. I mean, I would think the personnel, if we're the ones being charged with it, then fine. But if you want to pick 2 or 3 out of our group, or I suppose the board at large, I suppose you can do that, in which case, then I guess that those authorities no longer track their way back to the personnel. But for example, I've requested information from the county attorney's office. They're in the process of getting me that information, which includes some copies of some of our adjoining counties and what they have. It also includes, for example, he mentioned the state controller's recommended form. I'd like that transmitted to me officially, so I know it's coming from the county attorney, and and I know what it is and how it's rooted, and everything else that I've discussed with the county administrator and the county attorney, because I don't know how you come to a place of being able to judge this without doing a modicum of homework. I mean, you have to do some homework, and I think that Mrs. Williger is all but 3 weeks into this. The county administrator, maybe less than that, I don't know. I mean, we have to give them, a balance with their other workloads, the time to, to get fully up to speed. There are people I know they're talking to that we really need to talk to just to make sure we get this right. So I guess what I'm saying is that setting a timeline on this, if they're comfortable with that and they're comfortable with coming forward within that timeline, then I guess I'm comfortable with it.
So you would be comfortable with the special committee working on this? I know that I have done a lot of homework. I know that you have done a lot of homework. So if you want to be on that special committee, that's certainly acceptable, but this would be not a personnel committee. It would be a separate committee.
I would prefer to deal with it when it comes to the personnel committee and not be on special. Maybe it would be good to have some people from the outside. My only comment would be eventually, I guess you're saying that, are you saying that the chairperson is going to appoint a special committee and it's going to be apart from personnel now, and then it'll come from the special committee to the board, or is it going to come from the special committee back to personnel and then to the board? I mean, I don't think I completely understand.
I was hoping not to bog it down with that much detail, to have the special committee put together a recommendation. If you want to have it presented at the personnel committee, I have no problem with that. But it does need to come to the full board eventually for the recommendation, and either an up or down by the full board at the July meeting is the intent.
Well, I know and I'll stand corrected on this, Amanda or Ryan, but I believe special committees, the power to create special committees lies with the chairperson of the board.
It lies with the
Ms.
board.
Zetlin?
With the board. And so it's going to require what I'm saying is that if that's the path you want to go down, just understand that whatever the 1, 2, 3, 4 of this is. And, but I still, while I have the floor, I just would say to Robert, the material that I've asked for, if you could please send it along, and just so that I could look at it, and I'll deal with it when I get it. And if I have any further questions, questions, I'll certainly send them along.
I think that would be appropriate to have you part of the special committee so that everything that Robert is putting together that he sends to you can be sent to the entire committee. Mr. Moore, could you explain again what your proposal was for the addition of a whereas clause or
Sure.
I'm sorry, a be resolved?
Sure. The reason I was thinking of having a temporary special committee created as opposed to just charging the personnel committee and having it as a pending item, if you will, is because I'm speaking, essentially what Supervisor Bruno spoke to is that we want a timeline on it. You can create a special committee and charge that special committee when you create it. And so we can be fairly specific in that resolve paragraph. The Board of Supervisors has the ability to create a special committee. You recall when we created the EMS committee, what created that was not an edict from Frank when he was chair in January. It was the organizational meeting that included the rules of the board that had that committee on it. Goes to the resolution of the board. So that's why I suggested that, is to create a temporary ad hoc committee, give it a specific charge with making recommendations on this specific issue for the July board meeting. I do think it's appropriate if the supervisors want those recommendations to come back through personnel. That'd be appropriate. Personnel is a standing committee. This committee is not. It's for the board to decide how you want to handle that. But that's why I went there.
Okay, I had a couple of hands. Let me go to Supervisor Driscoll, then McGowan, and then Garrity.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'll be quick. A few minutes ago, we approved or we asked the board how many people wanted to go down to the Nato conference, and we're sending 2 supervisors and a staff member. What if 19 supervisors want in on the special committee? I mean, how do you kind of select that? Who's more important? Who's less important? Are there sides? How does that happen? I'm all for a special committee, but to Supervisor Conover's, do personnel committee people get preference? On or off? How does all that happen?
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. That is a good point. And I will tell you, again, I have been doing a lot of work on this. It is a lot of work. And if you want to be on the special committee, you better be ready to put the work in. And I don't see a lot of people raising their hands to be part of that and do the work and sit down and have the meetings. But certainly raise your hand now if you want to be on the special committee. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yeah, I just to clarify with Amanda, because I went to put a special committee together for the solar. And, I thought I put a good team together, and later on I got a call from Amanda who said, Brad, you can't do that. So I'm not sure if this is a different committee than I would put in, because you can't have 3 of the same people on any of the committees together.
Right. Well, the difference is that you had a task force, which is different than a special committee.
All right. Phew.
This special committee is going to be set by the board. And then once that special committee is established with its number and tasked with its purpose, then the chair is the one who appoints the members of that committee.
Oh, all right. All right.
Mr. Moore.
I was going to read from the state law is exactly what Amanda said. We're looking to the state law here for the authority. The board appoints a special committee. And the board may, let me just do it. The board may from time to time create special committees. Any resolution creating a special committee shall specify the powers and duties of the committee and the number of its members. Each member of the special committee shall serve for a period specified in such resolution, but in any event not longer than the term for which he or she shall have been elected as a supervisor. Members of all standing and special committees shall be appointed by the chairman of the board from its membership.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Garrity.
Just real quick, all I want is, could somebody send me, I have 812, I read it backwards and forwards, 806. I'm not quite sure about 806, that section of it. Maybe I've read it and just didn't compute. 806, and then the controller's opinion, if somebody has a couple of those, they could forward to us, it would go easy. It would be easier for us if we were looking at the same stuff.
Correct. I agree with you.
812 I have. I have 812.
I agree. I don't see any other hands. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
Yes, Supervisor Garrity, and I seconded it.
The motion is created to recommend a special committee.
Correct. It would have to pass the board at the next meeting, at the board meeting. Okay. All those opposed? That carries. Thank you. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, back to your draft. I have a question on number 3, the real estate. I understand the, the employee or whoever and the spouse, but the other relative might be a little, general because, some of us have a lot of relatives. I have nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles.
Supervisor
I mean,
Thomas.
it could take weeks to put that.
Wait, Supervisor Thomas, there is a definition for relative at the beginning of the local law, and it refers to your spouse, child, stepchild, or dependent, which would then be defined further by Mr. Terwilliger's addition. That's a great point. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring up today before this
That's a good one.
committee so that this can be thought about? I mean, I seriously, I have put this out there and I have not received any substantive feedback for weeks since the last board meeting, which was whatever. I know people have concerns and people are very busy. I understand that. But let's get the discussion out there so that people know what the special committee should actually be looking at if anyone has concerns on particular issues. Supervisor Garrity, and then Chairwoman Seaver.
I mean, question 3, why? What difference does it make on real estate? That's one thing I'd like somebody to clarify. Why?
Okay.
Okay.
Chairwoman Seaver.
I'm not answering Supervisor Garrity's
No.
question.
No, you had your hand up prior.
I did.
No.
Okay. What Supervisor Thomas just pointed out was probably more important than what all of us recognize. We started this process years and years ago when Warren County formed a committee of their own supervisors. And I believe, and Ryan can correct me, but it was the early 90s. And the entire intent then was to talk about how a long state adopted form does not fit the needs of our county. And since that time, we have continued to talk about this and look at updates. One of those just being as simple as what Supervisor Thomas brought up, which was the definition of relative. And while we're all spending this time to look at the forms, I would also like to cite and recognize multiple, over a dozen individuals, staff and supervisors who worked on the ethics policy itself, where in fact the definition of relative was reviewed and compared to 61 other policies. My point in saying this is while Supervisor Conover's comments are well taken about all the effort that we should put into amending any type of policy in Warren County, we have been putting in this effort and energy since the early 90s. And again, I know just from being a member on the board since 2014 that when Supervisor Garrity, Supervisor Conover, and Supervisor Thomas have all been chairs, that they have heard from me about my concerns regarding this policy. And we've heard from almost every single member on this board about concerns and on if we are doing right by not just our county, but by those people that have to fill out these forms. It's up almost 80 plus people. And I think we're losing sight of the impact and the responsibility and how important it is to make sure that we provide everyone a method, not only for success, but for transparency and accountability. And this new board of ethics that's being formed, they will take a proactive, enhanced approach. That's the purpose of these types of revisions. So while we're focused really, I know Supervisor Conover, I'm cutting into your time and I apologize, but I think it's so important to recognize the work that's gone into the policy as well as the appendix. Because really what we just did was look at something that wasn't functioning as well, and we're trying to improve upon it as a body collectively. So for those that would like to be involved in that special committee, I would say, please email both myself and Supervisor Bramer. It is a lot of work, and I'm hearing from a lot of supervisors how busy everyone is. And we're trying to get this information out as quickly, just like Supervisor Garrity is with OCTAX, so that everyone has the time to review and give that feedback. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. There are a lot of people that have been working really hard for many, many years on this. So that was it. I'm sure the floor is now yours, depending on the.
Well, I had Supervisor Diamond and then Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe your question previously was, were there anybody that would like to volunteer to be on this committee? I do have the time to dedicate to this committee. I'm pretty, it's a pretty interesting topic, and I'd like to put my name out there to be part of that committee to fast track this to the Personnel Committee or to a public hearing by August.
Great.
So if you're looking for volunteers, I'm volunteering.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, let's review the record here a little bit. Not that it's, I mean, these things happen in projects like this. They tend to stutter step a little bit, and that's understandable. I mean, you know, people are putting ideas out there, but we went from, you know, this idea to a one-page document with, I don't know, 2 questions, and then we went to a 2-page document with a few more questions, and now we've got this additional idea or form that the county attorney has put out there. And, you know, during this whole process so far, you know, what I've tried to do here, and I know other supervisors that have contacted me, what we tried to do is get fully up to speed on this, right? In other words, if the answer to the question that was just asked, was it earlier this week, Ryan, or was it last week? Our meeting, when did we meet?
Friday last week.
Friday. If the answer to that question had been, no, we're not grandfathered, the document's grandfathered, then we might have inadvertently changed the document, and all of a sudden we would have to be compliant with 812.5, which is a 20, depending on the font size you want to use, a 24, 25, 27-page document with 19 questions. So these are very serious questions that we need to ask, hopefully, when we become aware of them, and we need to have answers to. You know, what would have happened if the answer to that question had, and we don't have that in writing yet, by the way, and hopefully we'll get that in writing, so that we can answer some of these questions. And so I think that, you know, okay, well, maybe this is stuttering a little bit, and I don't blame the proponents on this. This is what happens within a process like this. And so, you know, Mr. Twilliger's got the number of documents he's going to send to me. I'm going to review them, try to do my homework well, and hopefully where we can get to is a place where whatever we decide to do is going to be something that meets the intent of the law. Let me say that again, that meets the intent of the law. And so that's all I really have to say at this stage, is that I get the eagerness on the part of some. This thing's morphing, almost seems like every other day now, and that's okay. We'll let it continue to evolve, and we'll judge it when it comes before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. I will remind you about Mr. Terwilliger's memo that was provided in writing to us prior to the last board meeting. And also with respect to your request that he send you materials, I'm going to ask again that Mr. Terwilliger make sure that he sends that to the entire special committee so that everyone on the special committee is working from the same page. Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From what I'm hearing, isn't the primary question here, are we legally able to change this or not? If that's the question, once you answer that, the county attorney can do that. Once you've cleared that away, yes, we can legally modify this document, or no, we can't. If we can't, case closed. If we can, then you move forward, and it shouldn't be that onerous to formulate a revised document.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Bruno. And what the county attorney has indicated to us clearly is that we are not bound by the statutory form, and we can create a form. We are going to form the special committee so that we can make sure everyone has input who wants to. Some people are not interested all that much in this form, and I understand that too. I am hearing, I want to get to you in a second, Mr. Moore. I am hearing from Ms. Allen, though, that we should indicate in our resolution coming out of personnel how many people are going to be on the special committee. And she's recommended to me 5 to 7. I'm going to suggest 5. Does anyone have a problem with that? Can I pull that through by consensus, or do I need to take a vote?
I would just do the vote.
Okay. Supervisor Garrity, would you mind making a motion that we have 5 people on the committee?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And I'll second again. Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. I'll put you on the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No, I'm not.
Thank you. That carries. Supervisor Conover, may I speak to, may Mr. Moore address us quickly before I come to you? Thank you.
Oh, sure. Just to Supervisor Bruno's question, and Robert and I have both been looking into this. I'll give you my answer. In 1987, New York State passed a sweeping ethics reform bill, and it was very controversial. We found articles from the time that were written by NISAC, by NICOM, by the Association of Towns, and they all spoke to this. We went from essentially last in the nation to first in the nation in terms of having stringent ethics laws. The law was primarily aimed at the state government, at executive staff and legislative staff. And in order to also deal with the municipal staff, they came up with the idea that if a municipality does not adopt its own ethics code and its own financial disclosure form by the end of 1990, then the sledgehammer that was going to fall on them was that they were going to have to use the state form. That's the form that Supervisor Conover spoke to, that's 25 pages long, and it's very intrusive. So, and all of these contemporaneous documents speak to this, that this was the state's tool to force bodies like ours to have the debate and figure out what we wanted to do. After the law was adopted, there was a temporary commission on ethics that was set up by the state of New York to make interpretations and issue regulations and provide guidance on this subject, because the actual letter of the law is very confusing, and it, for a municipality, it's not very specific if you're grandfathered out. If you're not grandfathered out, you got to follow everything in subdivision 5. But if you are grandfathered out of it, it's not very specific. It deals with contracts, conflicts of interest. It's very broad. But that temporary commission existed to provide advice to municipalities and to others on ethics. That temporary commission ended up issuing a report in 1993, and then it disbanded, and all of its regulatory authority devolved upon, because there was a state board of ethics that sat under that temporary commission, and all of its regulatory authority devolved upon the municipalities, the localities themselves. There's a New York State Bar Association book on all of this stuff that Robert was able to obtain, and I've been slowly going through it. I know he has too. But the content of that book should certainly be part of this review. It's very informative. I read about 2 hours worth of it last night. So that's, and to Supervisor, it also touches to Supervisor Garrity's question about real estate. When the 1993 report came out from that temporary commission, they stated that a long invasive disclosure form is not necessarily the be all end all of ethics. And they identified for a municipality, which is a bit different from being an actor at the state level, for a county, you're most likely to have conflicts based on the type of work that a county does. You're most likely to have conflicts with your real estate holdings, or with your outside income, your outside employment, or with your spouse's outside employment. And everything that I've certainly read, state comptroller's recommended form, that's what our current form is based on. I went through the 2014 minutes, and Martin Afridu was county attorney, and he worked on, they came up with something that they wanted to do, and then a few months passed and they ended up going with the state comptroller's model form. That's what our current form is based on. So every recommendation I've seen, no matter what, always includes real estate.
Thank you. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, look, let me say this nicely. Look, I understand the eagerness on the part of some, and but I think we should guard here. I would assume that any information that our staff has that they've been asked to obtain gets shared appropriately with the board. I'm not sure specific instructions to staff are needed in that regard. Let me just say this: any conversation or any request for information that this supervisor asks of our staff, believe me when I tell you, share it with the world. share it with the world. And and I don't believe you need any specific instruction in this regard, but I just would remind the chair again, this has evolved. We're now into our third generation on this. Let's try to get this right coming out. And that's all I have to say at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe that we will come out with something great after this special committee meets and provides us a recommendation in July. I'm going to close the discussion on this as we do have people who are waiting and other things to cover. Thank you for going through this with us, and we look forward to those recommendations coming soon. Okay, Mr. Terwilliger, could you give us where we are going with the litigation update so that we can get our motion for executive session correct?
Yes, Chairwoman Bramer, we have two law firms that we'd like to have reporting on a litigation update. It would be the Johnson and Laws, a law firm. Lorraine Jelinek is the attorney from that firm, and also Earl Redding from the Minnow, what was it? Romer, Minnow, and I can't remember the other, but from Romer and Minnow, Lorraine, Earl Redding too. And Earl requested that when we're going to get to him, for me to give him a telephone call on his cell phone, and that he would then log into Zoom and do that. So I can give Earl a call here. But I see that Lorraine Jelinek is already available on Zoom for us to be able to discuss some litigation. So I would like to ask if we could go into executive session on that. My justification would be Public Officers Law, Section 105D, that we're talking about pending and current and possibly proposed litigation.
Could you give us, what are the cases?
The case that Attorney Jelinek would be discussing is the case of Dickinson against Warren County and others. And the case that Mr. Redding would be discussing be the case of Ilana Morgan against Warren County and others.
Thank you. Could I have that motion, please, as stated by our county attorney, Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor McGowan, to go into executive session? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
insurance picks up everything but 50 for back pay.
Hey, this room is not.
Okay.
We're not muted. Still here? We got it.
We're still live, just. And we are live. Thank you. Thank you to the public for your patience. No action was taken during executive session. All right. With respect to the next item, I'll just give a quick update. We did extend the deadline a few days to allow additional people to apply for the county attorney position. I think we have a handful now, maybe 6. My plan is to have the personnel committee be the hiring team. So what I would like Jackie to do is send out the resumes. Please keep them confidential at this point. Remember, they're not, I don't believe they're subject to FOIL yet. So please keep them confidential. People probably haven't told their employers all of that stuff. So we will send those out, and I'd like Jackie to set up the first round interviews in the very near future. I know this is putting workload on people, but we need to get it done, and we need to make sure that we give the time for this process and giving each of the applicants a fair opportunity to be interviewed. So I think I said June 10th, 11th, maybe 14th are days that I'm looking at for Jackie to set up first interviews. Hopefully that's enough time for people to come. Does anyone have any scheduling conflicts necessarily with those dates?
I don't know.
It's a week. It's Thursday, Friday, and then the following Monday. I don't believe we have committees those days. And in the meantime, Jackie, could you just, when you reach out to all of them about the first interview dates, if you can, I was going to say, maybe ask for references. Maybe we don't need to check them yet, but start asking for references for everybody so we have that lined up as needed. Thursday, Friday, and Monday. I've not 10, 11, 14th. Okay, so that's the update there.
Yeah, I'm not here.
I don't have times yet. I'm hoping that Jackie can kind of narrow that down with who can come when. And we'll just set aside a few blocks each of those days. That's all right. We'll manage, hopefully. Okay. Ms. Figueroa, can you give your update, please?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning. No, it's afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sorry.
We've been here a while.
We have items A and B are my normal reports I provide every month. So I'm happy to entertain questions now or call me later. That will work fine. C, the board passed resolution 197 of 21 regarding carryover of, I'm sorry, not carryover, extension for people to use their carryover vacation for an amount of time to be determined. And I've been in discussions with Ryan, and I think we've determined the timeframe to be 60 days. So we were to report back to the personnel committee on that timeframe. So that's just a discussion item for that. If there's any questions. D is taken care of up above. E is an update that would require an executive session. If we Want to skip that one?
Let's
No.
skip that one just for the moment.
Okay. The last personnel meeting, item F, Larry Paltritz was with us and brought everybody up to speed on the CSEA negotiation. CSEA held their vote last week and did pass the contract. So we just need to bring an item to the board to ratify the new CSEA contract.
Okay, could I have that motion, please, to ratify the CSEA contract that was approved by the union last week? Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Garrity. Any discussion? We did get the update, and I think the county's position is we're very happy with the way everything is working out, and we're glad the union approved that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries.
And the last item is, again, just a discussion item. We've discussed it prior. I've been working with Liza from Employment and Training to establish a Warren County leadership training series. We have a badge created using the metric system. There's 12 classes. It's about 9 hours of training. I had a group of volunteers from department heads that went through several of the trainings and provided feedback. So we have that rolled out and ready to go. We're going to discuss it in Friday's department head meeting. And I don't know if Liza's on. She was going to talk about it. Oh, yep, I see her.
I do see her. Great. Thank you, Jackie. I really appreciate you testing this out and for Liza's assistance getting this rolling through the metrics program. Liza, go ahead.
Thank you. So I really am here to answer questions, but I'm happy to share a little bit more information. So our county department pays for unlimited licenses through metrics so that all of our Warren County residents and businesses can use this online training platform. And so we've worked with Jackie and some of the department heads to figure out, okay, is this something that we want to do for our department heads? And we were able to identify some courses and have a custom badge created by New York Wired. That's the company that manages metrics. They're an Albany-based company. And we're excited. We feel like this is an opportunity for our department heads to have some additional resources when there are challenges with managing their team members. And it can be a proactive approach or a responsive approach. We also feel like this would be great over time, long-term, that all new department heads would take this full training. But I'm happy to answer any more specific questions if anyone has any.
Oh, as personnel chair, I'm very excited that we put this in place as a tool for our department heads. And I love that idea that you just mentioned about having this as part of our onboarding program for brand new people, especially brand new department heads, to give them some more resources and knowledge and understanding about management and how to handle difficult employee situations, because it does come up here. We are a county with 800 and some employees, so we have a lot of this happening around the county, and I'd like us to be as professional and engaged and equipped as possible to be able to handle those things when they arise. If anybody has further questions for Liza, please go ahead. She's very knowledgeable about the program. She did send me a detailed email that I can send out to the committee. I don't think we need any committee action, but I wanted to make sure that the committee all knew about this, and you can work with your for committees where you're working with individual department heads, please encourage them to go check this out. There is a way they have to go through and sign up, right, Liza? They have to get an account.
Yes, they can contact our office, Andrea Kinderman, to set up their account on metrics, and then she will add the course badge to their course plan.
Okay, that's great. And I know the system has, I think, literally thousands of things. So this badge has been narrowed down to be really specific for our management team. So having them look at the badge will really help them, and so they don't spin their wheels doing all these other things in the course. Of course, they're welcome to do those too, because like you said, it's all free, right, for the county.
Correct.
Great. All right. Thank you very much to both of you. I don't see any questions unless I'm missing any on the screen. Thanks a lot. And as was mentioned, Ryan will bring this up at the department head meeting on Friday, so the department heads will hear about this directly. Okay. Do we need the executive session today, Jackie? Is that something we should take care of?
I think the policy update says we're required to do it within 60 days of the final outcome of the complaint,
Mhm.
which was on 5/6. So I don't know if we're going to have another committee meeting.
Okay, let's go ahead. Could I have the motion? Thank you Supervisor Conover, to go into executive session for a personnel matter, and second by Supervisor Driscoll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you all. Hang tight. Mike Colvin.
Hello.
There he is. Okay. Are we live on YouTube?
Yes.
Tammy? Yes. Someone said yes. Okay. Mr. Colvin, what is your request for us today, please?
So here at the county, we have a internet connection with Spectrum, both for the county and our public internet. And in order to upgrade our public internet, they were wanting us to have two separate accounts. And in order to get two separate accounts, we have to sign a contract. In order to sign a contract, we need a resolution. So I'm just asking for a resolution to sign a contract with them so we can get our equipment upgraded. Doesn't change anything in costs. It's just we get our equipment
No
upgraded.
cost. It's already in the budget. Great, great. Supervisor Garrity on the motion, second by Supervisor Conover. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Colvin.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if I saw Supervisor Leggett. We can cover this though. So they are amending to delete a position and create a new crime victim specialist at that salary. Yes.
It's discussed in committee. I'll move it.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Second by Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussion? Supervisor Leggett, did you want to speak to this? Are you okay? Okay. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
Madam Chair, there's an item that's not on the agenda. The salary for the sixth assistant ADA needs to be reduced to the entry increment.
Sorry. I talked to Jason about that. They said that it does not need to be done, that is the base salary, but.
It does need to be done.
Reduce the sixth district attorney to the base salary.
Yes.
We need a motion for that. Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor McGowan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. We'll just cover our bases just in case. Okay. I don't think I saw Supervisor Frazier. Just give me a second. So the deleting of special services, okay. And filling a new office assistant, Office of the Aging Services Assistant.
Can they all go at once?
I haven't looked that far ahead. Are you saying A, B, and C?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I will make that motion to approve A, B, and C. It's all been discussed in committee.
It did. This went round and round, right? This
Yep.
is the one, yeah.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. But do we need any more discussion here? A, B, and C. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Oh, okay, Supervisor Driscoll, go ahead.
Just a smart request, taking the needs of countryside and basically crafting a position that has, different responsibilities. But basically, it's taking a position that they couldn't fill and upgrading it. So it's going to work.
Okay, so I'll take that as a motion. Can I have a second? Supervisor Garrity. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll. We hope that'll work out for Countryside. Treasurer Swan.
Yes, I'm working with the personnel director to work on this item, so I don't really need a discussion today. We're not prepared.
Okay, that will work for us, I believe. Does anyone have any questions for the treasurer today on this item? We'll keep it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Just for,
Yes, Supervisor Garrity.
this would have to be negotiated with the CSEA, correct?
Treasurer Swan.
Well, that's one of the sticking points because I'm not really sure that that's correct. So we're trying to work that out. We're trying to work out what we need to do with the positions too.
Okay, we'll keep it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Terwilliger, there was a request at the last committee meeting. Do you have an update for us or I know you've had a ton on your plate, so I don't know if you've had a chance to research this one.
Hey, basically what I've seen is that the county attorney's position is limited to the duration of the term of the county supervisors. I'll dive into it a little bit more and see if there's anything really esoteric out there that says otherwise, but all the prevailing statute on it in case law is that it's limited to the term of the appointing body, the term of the Board of Supervisors, that whatever their term is, that's the same term that the county attorney has, that same duration.
Okay, I know that there are a couple supervisors here with 4-year terms, so I think in the past, we've always gone on the 2-year term of the rest of us. But if you could just see if there's anything else out there.
Yeah, multiple terms.
Okay. All right. This is just an update on positions filled, correct? We don't need any motions on this, correct? Okay. And last, so I don't forget, Supervisor Garrity, as you did.
I did, but there was no public comment.
Okay. Mr. Colvin, I understand that you're monitoring YouTube. Are there any public comments for the committee today?
There are none.
Thank you for your assistance.
Yes, that's covered.
Anything further to come before the committee today? Motion to adjourn, Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor McGowan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Already?
You're up.